After Sonic the Hedgehog took the gaming world by storm, animal mascots were everywhere. But what do you do when all the animals are taken? Well, why not stick some eyes on a taxi and make a game around that? A fun game filled with neat ideas, Tryrush Deppy is a platform game about a cute taxi trying to win a race around America and win the heart of a race car he is boot over bonnet for. Each level represents a different part of the country. Deppy himself and the many other characters racing alongside you are brimming with life and animation, along with the giant boss battles that fill the screen. Tryrush Deppy doesn't do too many new things from other platformers before its time, but what it does do, it does very, very well. What is quite clever about the game is Deppy doesn't have hit points to lose a life per se, but instead loses fuel. Whether you are racing at max speed, similar to Sonic after a spin dash, taking a hit from an enemy and crashing into a wall, or just over time as Deppy has the engine running, the fuel in Deppy's tank will decrease. If it runs out, Deppy is out of gas and you will lose a life. Of course that makes sense as you are a car and will perhaps be the divisive factor on your enjoyment of this game. To keep Deppy in good shape as you race past the many sights of the good old US of A, you have to pick up fuel tanks to keep the meter out of the red, and this can make bosses really tricky as you switch between attacking aggressively, quickly draining your fuel reserves, and refueling, scrambling around to find gas tanks to stay alive. The real gear grinder is when Deppy is low on fuel. He gets tired and slow to move, which continues to give him personality but also can result in some frustrating deaths as you scramble for fuel with impaired movement and jump ability. But when you improve at the game, this fuel draining mechanic becomes less of a factor, which only makes it a problem for first time players. Which is why Deppy can be a real roadblock to learn the twists and turns of the road the first time you are behind the wheel, but stick with it and it won't be long until you drive Deppy to the finish line looking back on a solid platform game. But racing to the finish isn't the only way you can play Tryrush Deppy. Instead you can explore the levels to rescue other cars that have run into trouble during the race. There are also bonus stages and collectibles to acquire that ultimately give you one of 6 endings and tell the story of Deppy's quest for love with sometimes heartbreaking results. This means Deppy does have a fair amount of replayability through its several branching levels, with its short completion time meaning it never really overstays its welcome. Still, Deppy never really gets out of first gear with its level design, and I felt that developers could have done a lot more with their mascot being a car. Perhaps adding ramps and twisting past add more flair to each level's design. But Tryrush Deppy's biggest flaw is not with the game itself, but how slow Deppy was to make his debut. 2D platformers were seen as out of date by 1996, and being exclusive to the Sega Saturn further lessened its appeal, making it a game with very few copies in the world, and much like the story of the yellow taxi underdog, Deppy was not given the chance to compete for your purchase anywhere outside of Japan. Therefore, Tryrush Deppy has remained parked exclusively on the Sega Saturn, making prices on eBay rise year on year due to its rarity, much like a high-end Ferrari, not the short fun taxi fare of a game he should be worth. And it will look like poor Tryrush Deppy will never get a re-release anywhere else, so if you would like to give this cute little yellow taxi a chance to win your heart, you will have to find a way to play it on Sega Saturn. Bagris says the gameplay seems pretty solid and there's a lot of attention to detail to the game. Seems like a better attempt at a Sonic clone and did it right. If I could pick up on the Switch, I definitely would. Kizra says cute and colourful style, good music, has some interesting mechanics with the need to refuel and the way enemies can hinder you. Mistress Puff says I'm all for a cute platformer, so it's a hit from me. John says nice character, average game. Dragan says the animation quality is really good, the gameplay mechanics are simple and accessible and is upbeat I think, which is really nice and not all dark and serious. And finally Lisa says, OMG, it's definitely a hit, that taxi is way too cute for it not to be. With that said, adding up all the hits and the misses from the OLL community, 75% recommend that you try Tryrush Deppy. Thank you to all of those who left their opinion on this week's game. If you would like to be a part of the next Critical Hit, then please consider joining the OLL community. You can find the links to all of that in the description below. This was Bill on behalf of OLL Games, and we'll see you next time. Laters!